The most perplexing mystery that people repeatedly brought to Rudolf Steiner in private consultations over decades of work as a spiritual counselor was not a matter of physical illness or material hardship, but was the deeply personal enigma of why, despite all conscious efforts to choose differently, despite all sincere promises that this time will be different, despite all therapy and self-help and rational analysis of past patterns, a person invariably found himself again in a relationship with someone extraordinarily similar to all the previous troubled people he had sworn never to do, more allowed to come into life. This relentless repetition manifested itself in all areas of human relationships. A woman finally escaping a marriage to a controlling man, only to discover 6 months later that she was dating a man with exactly the same controlling tendencies, only manifested through slightly different tactics. A professional leaving a job due to an abusive, narcissistic boss, only to be hired by a supervisor who turned out to have the same pathological personality structure, operating under a superficially different veneer. A person ending a toxic friendship with someone manipulative and emotionally vampiric, only to form a new friendship that within months developed exactly the same dynamics. Destructive. The frustration people expressed was not merely about unhappiness from bad relationships, but was about the terrifying feeling of being trapped in a pattern that seemed to operate completely outside of conscious control, as if some invisible force was orchestrating repeated encounters with the same problematic personality archetypes, regardless of how vigilant the person tried to be, in avoiding signs of danger that they had learned to recognize through previous painful experiences. Steiner listened to these frustrated confessions with profound understanding, because the spiritual perspective he had developed through decades of clairvoyant investigation of hidden dimensions of human existence revealed that these repetitive patterns were neither accidents nor bad luck, nor were they the result of mere psychological failures of discernment, but were manifestations of profound spiritual laws governing human relationships through multiple incarnations, laws that operated with mathematical precision, bringing specific people into the orbit of each individuality at specific times for specific purposes that completely transcended understanding of earthly personality, focused only on seeking comfort and avoiding pain. The first fundamental truth that Steiner insisted people must understand to make any sense of repetitive patterns is that human relationships are not random encounters of strangers, but are karmically orchestrated reunions of souls who have interacted in multiple previous incarnations across millennia of shared human history. When a person encounters someone with whom they feel an instant connection, whether positive of magnetic attraction or negative of inexplicable repulsion, this strong emotional reaction that seems disproportionate to the current circumstances of the initial encounter is neither illusion nor projection, but is the soul's memory of multiple previous encounters in past incarnations where relationship was established through shared experiences that created karmic bonds, persisting through death and rebirth. These karmic bonds, according to theosophical teachings that Steiner embraced and expanded, function as invisible energetic cords connecting souls across time and space, and when two karmically linked souls incarnate simultaneously in the same historical period and geographic region, the magnetism of these karmic bonds operates automatically at deep levels of the spiritual unconscious, guiding people towards encounters that, from an external perspective, appear to be coincidences, but from an internal soul perspective are carefully orchestrated events, fulfilling evolutionary needs and balancing accounts, pending karmic issues. The crucial fact that a person must recognize is that the specific type of person they repeatedly attract is not a random type, but a specific category of soul with whom they share a particular karmic history extending across multiple lifetimes. Perhaps in a previous incarnation, the person was the perpetrator of certain types of harmful behaviors, and now must experience the receiving end of these same behaviors as a way of learning through direct suffering what they inflicted on others. Or perhaps the person was the victim of certain types of abuse and is attracting similar perpetrators again because they work to develop inner strength to establish boundaries. Healthy and necessary self-assertion has not been completed in previous incarnations and must continue through repeated opportunities until capabilities are adequately developed. And in both cases, repetition is not arbitrary punishment, but is a precisely calibrated spiritual curriculum, offering exactly those experiences that the soul most needs for evolution at the current stage of development, even when these experiences are painful and unwanted from the perspective of an earthly personality that does not see the bigger picture of multiple lives extending through eons. The second crucial truth that emerges from anthroposophical understanding is that each human being is not merely a physical body and mind, but is a complex system of multiple interpenetrating bodies, or vehicles of consciousness, each operating in a different dimension of reality and each carrying specific patterns that determine types of magnetically attracted people. Visible physical body composed of material substances is only outermost and densest layer, penetrated and organized by etheric body or body of vital forces that maintains life processes, which in turn is penetrated by astral body or body of desires and emotions that is seat of sentimental life and motivational impulses, and finally inhabited by spiritual self or immortal individuality that is core of self-reflective consciousness persisting through multiple incarnations. Crucial to understanding the magnetic attraction of specific types of people is that each of these bodies possesses what Steiner called a vibrational signature, or characteristic energetic pattern that is determined by habitual thoughts, chronic emotions, unresolved traumas, cultivated virtues, nurtured vices, and crucially by karmic imprints carried over from previous incarnations. And these vibratory patterns emanate from the person in all directions, creating an auric field that extends meters beyond boundaries of physical skin, radiating like a radio station broadcasting in specific frequencies. When two people come into physical proximity, or even when they think about each other from a distance, auric fields interact according to the law of resonance, where similar frequencies attract and amplify each other, while incompatible frequencies simply do not engage or can even repel each other. Person with specific auric patterns in the astral body, created, for example, by chronic unresolved anger from injustices experienced in multiple lifetimes, literally transmits frequency of anger that resonates with and magnetically attracts others whose astral bodies also carry patterns of anger, either as perpetrators who will provoke anger or as other victims with whom they will share mutual validation of victimization. In any case, angry anger MRI ensures that person will continue to attract situations and people that will activate and reinforce anger pattern until conscious work is done to transmute anger into compassionate understanding by fundamentally changing the vibrational signature of the astral body. The third essential understanding is that patterns in the mental body created by fundamental beliefs about self, others, and the nature of relationships function as invisible programming, determining the types of people and situations that a person magnetically attracts and also how they interpret the behaviors of others. If a person carries a deep belief that I don't deserve to be loved, formed perhaps in the current incarnation through parental rejection or in previous incarnations through experiences of abandonment, this belief operates as a perceptual filter, making the person unconsciously seek and interpret evidence that confirms the belief while dismissing or minimizing contradictory evidence. When someone kind and loving approaches, a person with a belief of undeservingness automatically distrusts motivations because they do not fit into an established narrative, or sabotages the relationship through behaviors that eventually cause the partner to withdraw, confirming the original belief, or simply does not feel magnetic attraction. Because vibration of genuine love does not resonate with vibration of self-rejection that dominates mental body. Conversely, when an emotionally unavailable or abusive person appears, a person with undeserving beliefs feels strong magnetic attraction, because this type confirms and validates fundamental beliefs about one's own worth. And the destructive dynamic that develops is strangely comfortable on a deep level because it is familiar and predictable rather than threateningly new, as would be a healthy relationship that would challenge every belief structure established through multiple incarnations. Transforming patterns of attraction requires not merely changing superficial behaviors, but requires fundamentally transforming beliefs in the mental body that are creating a vibrational signature that magnetizes specific types. And this transformation does not happen through superficial positive affirmations, but through the deep work of tracing origins of beliefs, through multiple layers of experience, including potentially accessible past life memories, through deep meditation or therapeutic regression, and then consciously choosing to adopt new beliefs based not on past traumatic experiences, but on spiritual understanding of each human being's true divine nature as an individualized expression of cosmic consciousness, deserving unconditional love simply by existing. The fourth crucial dimension is understanding that karma is not a fixed destiny, but is a field of possibilities, where margin of freedom exists and can be progressively expanded through the development of consciousness, even when operating within karmic constraints inherited from past lives. When a person finds themselves repeatedly attracting the same problematic type, this indicates the presence of a strong karmic pattern operating. But how a person responds to this pattern is space of freedom that can make the difference between perpetuating the cycle indefinitely or gradually transcending it through different conscious choices. Karma can bring a controlling person into someone's orbit because there is karmic debt from a previous incarnation where roles were reversed. But how a person responds to attempts at control is a free choice. It can react automatically with passive submission, perpetuating a victim pattern that has operated through multiple lifetimes, or it can respond consciously with firm but compassionate establishment of boundaries, developing this capacity for self-assertion, which is the lesson the soul came to learn in this incarnation. Each time a person chooses to respond consciously instead of reacting automatically, they strengthen their freedom muscle and begin to change their auric pattern, which will eventually change the types of people they are attracted to because their vibrational signature has changed. Steiner emphasized that karmic transformation work is gradual and requires extraordinary patience. One cannot expect that, after a conscious decision to respond differently, every pattern will magically disappear. But after years of consistent practice of responding consciously rather than reacting automatically, profound transformations in the auric field inevitably manifest themselves in observable changes in the types of people and situations that appear in life. The fifth essential understanding involves recognizing the role of soul contracts, or pre-incarnation agreements that Steiner described as being made between souls on spiritual levels before incarnating, where souls agree to meet in physical life to fulfill specific purposes of mutual learning, even when these purposes require assuming roles of perpetrator and victim, harsh teacher and reluctant student, or other challenging dynamics. According to this perspective, when a person consistently attracts the same type of person, it may be because there is soul agreement to repeatedly work through specific lessons until they are fully learned, and different attracted individuals, who superficially appear to be separate types, may actually be members of the same soul group agreeing to take turns taking on the role of catalyst for person growth. This understanding does not mean that one must passively tolerate abuse or remain in destructive situations because it was agreed upon before birth. But it does mean recognizing that pattern has a greater spiritual purpose that transcends simple judgments of good and bad, and that working through the pattern consciously rather than merely running away from it without understanding is a way of honoring the soul contract that one participated in creating before incarnating. When a person can see an abusive partner not only as a perpetrator of harm, but as a soul who has agreed to take on the difficult role of harsh teacher, forcing the development of capacities that would not be developed through gentle teachers, then there can be paradoxical gratitude even while establishing necessary boundaries and possibly leaving the relationship. Gratitude not for the abuse, but for the catalyst for growth that the experience provided. The sixth profound truth is that the work of transforming patterns of attraction cannot be done merely on a mental level through intellectual analysis, nor only on an emotional level through catharsis of feelings, but requires integrated work involving all levels of the human being, including especially the physical body and spiritual practices that transform the real energetic substance of subtle bodies. Steiner developed a complete system of spiritual exercises specifically designed to purify and refine etheric, astral, and mental bodies by gradually transforming vibrational signatures that determine patterns of magnetic attraction. Fundamental concentration exercise, where the person maintains focused attention on a single object for a period of 15 minutes, without allowing single thought beyond contemplation of the object, strengthens the etheric body and develops control over mental processes that are the first step towards freedom from automatic patterns. And retrospective exercise performed before bed, where the person reviews the day's events in reverse order, observing emotional and behavioral patterns without judgment, develops the capacity for objective self-observation essential for recognizing patterns operating automatically. Meditation on specific virtues, such as patience, courage, compassion, equanimity through deep contemplation of the essences of these qualities and attempts to manifest them in everyday life, gradually transforms the astral body from a vehicle dominated by uncontrolled passions into a refined instrument capable of expressing superior soul qualities. Work with conscious imagination, where a person deliberately visualizes ideal relational encounters that they would like to manifest, creates patterns in the mental body that begin to magnetize corresponding experiences through the law that thought is a creative force shaping reality when sustained with sufficient intensity and clarity over time. The crucial seventh dimension is understanding genuine forgiveness, not as condoning harmful behavior, nor as necessarily reconciling with a person who has caused harm, but as an energetic release of karmic imprisonment that keeps a person magnetically linked to problematic types through energetic cords of resentment, anger, and victimization. While a person maintains active resentment against someone they have harmed in the past, they are maintaining a living energetic connection with this person and the pattern they represent. And this connection works like a magnet, attracting similar individuals who resonate with the same frequency of anger and victimization. Genuine forgiveness, according to Steiner, is not a single act of decision, but is a gradual process that may require months or years of deliberate inner work involving first recognizing the full depth of pain that was caused without minimizing or denying it. Secondly, understanding through an expanded spiritual perspective that the perpetrator was operating under one's own karmic limitations and unconscious patterns, not justifying behavior, but contextualizing it in the larger picture of universal suffering. Thirdly, taking responsibility for one's own contribution to dynamics through auric patterns that magnetically attracted situation, even when not consciously chosen. and finally release energetically through specific practices, such as visualizing cutting energetic cords connecting the person or sending light and blessings to the person's soul, even while maintaining firm physical boundaries. When genuine forgiveness is achieved, people often report a physical sensation of lightness, as if literal weight has been removed, and changes in the types of people attracted subsequently often follow because the frequency of resentful victimization has been transmuted into the frequency of compassionate responsibility that attracts completely different types. The eighth fundamental truth is that pattern of attraction not only operates by attracting specific people, but also operates through projection, where people unconsciously attribute to others qualities that they may not even possess, because they are projecting their own unintegrated contents, and then react to projections as if they were objective realities by creating self-fulfilling prophecies that appear to confirm pattern. A person who unconsciously carries a belief that all men are unfaithful, based perhaps on multiple lifetime experiences of being cheated on, may project potential infidelity onto every man he encounters, even when objective evidence does not support projection, and then behave in ways: constant surveillance, accusations based on unfounded suspicions, manipulative tests of loyalty, that eventually push even the originally loyal partner toward actual infidelity, or at least toward ending the relationship due to the atmosphere of intolerable distrust, thus confirming the original belief and reinforcing auric pattern that will continue to attract similar situations. Breaking this cycle of projection and self-fulfilling prophecy requires developing deep self-knowledge through practices such as Jungian shadow therapy, Vipassana meditation, cultivating detached observation of mental processes, or Steiner mirror work, where one deliberately seeks to recognize in oneself exactly those qualities that most irritate when one sees in others. When a person recognizes that he is irritated by the emotional unavailability of others because he does not recognize his own unavailability, or that he criticizes controlling tendencies because he does not admit his own needs for control, then projections can be gradually withdrawn, allowing him to see others as they really are, rather than as screens for his own unintegrated contents. And this clarification of perception inevitably changes the types of people attracted to him, because signals he previously sent through confusing projections are now replaced by a clearer, more authentic presence that attracts correspondence, where clearer and more authentic answers. The ninth essential dimension involves understanding that the timing of when certain types appear in life is not random, but follows rhythms of spiritual development where different types are attracted at different stages of life, corresponding to different lessons the soul is ready to learn at each stage. A person may attract a succession of emotionally unavailable partners for 20-odd years because this is phase where a lesson of learning to self-nurture rather than seeking external validation is primary. And then after years of inner work developing genuine self-love, pattern can change dramatically where suddenly emotionally available and genuinely loving people begin to appear, because auric frequency has changed, reflecting inner development achieved. Similarly, a person may go through a phase of life attracting a succession of harsh teachers in the form of critical bosses, demanding partners, challenging friends, because the soul is in an accelerated phase of growth, requiring constant feedback and challenges that force development of capabilities. And then, when lessons have been adequately learned and capabilities developed, the pattern may change to attract more journey companions, who are equal in cooperating on shared projects rather than unequal in teacher-student dynamics. Recognizing these rhythms of development helps a person be patient with current patterns, understanding that they serve a specific purpose at a specific stage and that they will change naturally as development progresses to the next stage, rather than despairing that the current problematic pattern will continue indefinitely. The 10th profound truth that Steiner emphasized is that the work of transforming patterns of attraction is simultaneously the most personal and the most transpersonal work a person can undertake. It is personal because it requires honest confrontation with your own shadows, patterns, and limitations that no one else can do for you. But it is transpersonal because individual transformation inevitably contributes to the collective evolution of humanity, because all human beings are interconnected. At deep levels, and changes in a person's auric field subtly affect the collective auric field of all humanity. When a person works through the pattern of attracting abusive types by developing self-love and healthy boundaries, they are not only healing their own soul, but are contributing to the healing of the archetypal pattern of abuse that affects millions, and are making it slightly easier for others working through similar patterns because the collective morphogenetic field has been subtly altered. This understanding that personal work has cosmic significance can provide additional motivation during difficult phases of the transformation process, when the temptation is to give up and resign oneself to familiar patterns rather than continue the arduous effort of change, recognizing that one is serving the evolution of not just oneself, but of all humanity, can strengthen determination to persist through challenges. The complete transformation of attraction patterns, according to Steiner's teachings, is not a process that happens quickly or easily, but is a journey that can extend through years or even decades of sustained inner work. And even when significant progress is made, deeper layers of karmic patterns can continue to reveal themselves, requiring progressively deeper levels of work. A person may work through the surface layer of attraction patterns of emotionally unavailable partners, only to discover a deeper layer of attraction patterns of partners who are available, but who replicate dysfunctional childhood family dynamics, which in turn, when worked through, reveal an even deeper layer of past life karmic patterns. This progressive unveiling of layers should not be discouraging, but should be seen as a sign that development is progressing, and that consciousness is expanding to access progressively deeper levels of self that were previously completely unconscious. The journey of transformation is infinite in the sense that there are always deeper layers to explore and integrate, but it is also progressive in the sense that each layer worked on brings greater freedom, greater inner peace, and progressively healthier and more satisfying relationships that reflect achieved growth. The pattern has always been in you, waiting for recognition through the mirror of attracted people, and transformation has always been possible through the courage to look honestly at one's own contributions, rather than just blaming others, through the patience of working systematically through layers of conditioning and karma, through sustained spiritual practices, and through faith that spiritual laws governing magnetic attraction are accurate and reliable, so that genuine inner transformation will inevitably manifest itself in outer transformation of the types of people and experiences that appear in life, reflecting new levels of consciousness achieved through dedicated work over time. The final promise that Steiner offered, based on observations of countless cases over decades, was that no one is permanently trapped in a pattern of attraction, no matter how deeply rooted in karma from multiple lifetimes, because the essence of being human is freedom progressively gained through the development of consciousness that eventually transcends all limitations inherited from the past. Each person he encountered was working through specific patterns, some more challenging than others depending on their particular karmic history, but all had a latent ability to transform patterns through sustained application of spiritual practices, combined with a sincere willingness to take complete responsibility for their own experience, rather than remaining a helpless victim of external forces. The key was to understand that pattern is not punishment imposed by a malevolent universe, but is precisely calibrated educational curriculum offering exactly those experiences that the soul most needs for growth, and that when lessons are learned through conscious engagement with challenges rather than avoidance or denial, pattern naturally dissolves because it is no longer needed. A person who finally develops genuine self-love through years of working with a pattern of attracting rejecting partners discovers that rejecting partners simply stop appearing in life because the frequency of self-rejection that magnetized them has been transmuted into a frequency of self-acceptance that correspondingly magnetizes people who reflect this new inner state. A person who develops courage and self-assertion through successive encounters with controlling figures discovers that controllers disappear because a frequency of passive submission has been transformed into a frequency of respectful autonomy that attracts equals rather than domineering. In each case, external change of attracted types is an automatic consequence of internal change of auric patterns and fundamental beliefs, and time required for change to be completed varies, but principle remains constant. Genuine inner work inevitably produces outer results through spiritual laws as reliable as physical laws of gravity or electromagnetism operating in material dimensions. The ongoing invitation that Steiner's teachings offer is for each person to recognize patterns operating in one's own life through honest observation of successive relationships, identifying recurring themes, and then, rather than continuing to merely bemoan bad luck or blame others for repeated problems, take a position of responsibility by recognizing which pattern is being co-created through one's own unconscious auric patterns and beliefs that are magnetizing specific types through vibratory resonance. This assumption of responsibility is not self-blame, nor is it denying that others have responsibility for one's own behavior, but it is recognition of one's own power to influence experience through deliberate inner transformation that changes signals being sent and types being attracted. When a person stops looking for the perfect person out there, who will finally break the mold, and recognizes that the essential work is to transform a person in here by developing missing qualities and capabilities, then genuine empowerment becomes possible because one realizes that one is not at the mercy of random external forces, but is operating within an ordered system of spiritual laws that can be learned and worked on consciously. The pattern has always been within you, manifesting itself through people attracted to it like external mirrors, revealing internal dynamics that needed to be recognized and integrated. And paradoxical gratitude can emerge for all the difficult teachers who have appeared disguised as problematic partners, forcing confrontation with aspects of yourself that would otherwise have remained eternally unconscious and unworked on. The journey of transformation does not end with finally finding the right person, but continues infinitely as the progressive development of capacity to relate authentically from a center of inner wholeness rather than neurotic need, of mature love rather than childish dependence, of genuine generosity rather than transactional exchange, qualities that when developed naturally attract people operating at similar levels of spiritual maturity, creating relationships that serve mutual growth rather than perpetuating destructive patterns inherited from past lives that can ultimately be released through conscious work, completing karmic cycles, and allowing soul move to next-est ages of evolution on eternal journey towards full realization of divine potential latent in every human being, awaiting awakening through self-effort, working courageously with all challenges that life offers, including especially repetitive patterns of attraction, which are persistent invitations of the soul for transformative growth that transcends earthly personality limitations, opening to expanded dimensions of possibility that become accessible when person finally recognizes and embraces responsibility for what pattern has always been within, awaiting transformation through inner work that no one else can do, but which, when done, sincerely releases extraordinary power to create relational life aligned with greater vision elevated, rather than mechanical repetition of obsolete karmic scripts that can finally be retired with gratitude for lessons they have offered while moving consciously toward future, not determined by past, but created freely through present choices emerging from center of awakened consciousness that is true nature of every human individuality. The final wisdom that emerges from profound understanding of Steiner's teachings on patterns of attraction is that relationships are not ends in themselves, but are means through which the soul learns, grows, and evolves on the multi-lifetime journey towards spiritual perfection, and that each person attracted, regardless of how troublesome or painful the experience may be, offers precious opportunity for development that, when harnessed consciously, accelerates evolution in ways that comfort and ease never could. This perspective completely transforms relating to repetitive patterns from resentful discouragement to compassionate curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" with the tone of a helpless victim, the person asks, "What pattern are you trying to teach me?" with the attitude of a dedicated student committed to learning all the lessons that life offers. This fundamental shift in perspective from victim to learner is itself a powerful transformation that begins to shift auric patterns because frequency of victimization is replaced by frequency of responsibility and agency. When a person can look at a succession of difficult relationships and instead of seeing just a series of failures and pains, sees a carefully orchestrated educational curriculum offering exactly those experiences necessary to develop specific capabilities that were lacking, then genuine gratitude becomes possible for even the most painful experiences, and this gratitude is itself an alchemical transmutation that transforms the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom. The pattern has indeed always been in you as a seed of potential waiting for the right conditions to germinate and grow into the fullness of capabilities you now possess as a direct result of having worked through challenges that pattern presented through successive mirrors of attracted people. And final recognition is that without pattern and without difficult people who manifested it, achieved development simply would not have happened because genuine growth always requires resistance to be overcome and challenges to be worked through consciously. Ultimate freedom is not freedom from patterns and challenges, but is freedom within them to choose how to respond and how to use each experience as an opportunity for development rather than merely as a source of passive suffering. And this freedom is gained progressively through each conscious choice to respond differently until new responses become natural and automatic, reflecting genuine transformation of character, which then naturally attracts different types of experiences corresponding to the new level of being reached through sustained work over time, which is a lifelong journey of multiple lifetimes, extending through eternal soul evolution. Human,